Welcome back. Today we're going to do a quick one on the INAWAKEN DAWN MS single dynamic driver. So we'll kind of start with the things that maybe you don't care so much about, but inside the box you do get a case. You do get a nice SPC cable. It kind of looks like this. Nice 2-core. It's actually done quite well. You don't get the 1/4-inch adapter. That was mine that I accidentally pulled off my amp. But you do get the case, you do get the cable. So everything about this set that is cool and you're probably tuning in to hear about is purple. And we'll start with the faceplate. It does have a little splash of purple on it. But if we read the front of the box, and it says right here, so this is a 11.2 millimeter sputter deposition purple gold diaphragm. So that is this purple guy kind of poking through there. You can't get a great look at it. You can kind of get a great look at, that's not too bad. You get a pretty good look at the color of it at least. But yeah, it is pretty cool. It is nice and purple. I mean, even on the side, they have their name printed on the side of the dynamic driver. So it says PGM, DD1112, 112. So pretty cool. I mean, it is a very cool looking set. It's actually a nice resin build, really cool looking dynamic driver. Nozzle is kind of standard, but actually done quite well. Again, the faceplates are actually a splash of purple, done very well, very nicely as well. So all of that is, really nice and cool. So let's kind of dive into it and kind of talk about how this one sounds. And kind of what struck me almost kind of right at the beginning was it is another set that has kind of a really steep bass shelf. It's got a really heavy bass shelf, but a lowered treble. And I would say that this style of set, very much like Dyna Quattro, has a big bass shelf, but not necessarily meant for bass heavy genres. So it's more for people who like mids that sound a little thicker and a lot fuller. When you start pushing a dynamic driver out here, it doesn't sound, it doesn't sound all that great for hip hop or rap or other genres, even EDM. It kind of sounds okay. But I think what people find better about even Dyna Quattro, and I would say the same thing about Dawn MS, is it's kind of more for people who like better timbre in the mids, who like fuller mids, who like thicker mids. That's kind of this style of bass shelf actually does that quite well. And then they kind of reduce the treble, so there's no fatigue, there's no peakiness, there's no sibilance. And you get a really nice, smooth, warm, nice, full mid style set. And I think that's kind of where this one fits. And I would say Dyna Quattro kind of fits in that mold as well. So what is it? And we already talked about this. It's a very likable purple 11.2 millimeter dynamic driver set. What is it really? It has a heavier bass, less treble than popular Harman tunings. It's kind of a fun banger style. Again, it kind of looks like it has treble the way that Harman does, but it's actually not. This is quite a heavy bass shelf, so this is kind of bottom heavy. This actually presents in ear a little less than what it looks like on the graph, and I would say it's even a little bit less than Dyna Quattro. The way that Dawn comes across in the treble is actually quite reserved, quite safe, conservative, pulled back. However you want to say it. It sounds like it's been tilted a little bit lower. So who should buy this kind of set? People who are into dynamic driver timbre heads who want a bassier set but probably don't listen to bass heavy genres. Like I said, it has a really nice bass shelf and it will do, some nice rumble, but where it sounds a little bit better is right in the mids and getting that fullness and thicker style mids than what perhaps you're used to with Harman. Harman does really lean mids, lean lower mids. This is definitely a fuller, thicker style, and I think that will appeal to certain people and people who like better timbre from dynamic drivers. You kind of get that as well, and it really reminded me of listening to an IEM with an impedance adapter where it tilted the treble down. Like if you ever use an impedance adapter, they sometimes tend to take the treble and tilt it down a little bit lower, and you get a reduction in the treble. The bass is more present, and that's kind of the way this one comes across. A lot of balance is kind of shifted here and less here. It's not quite imbalanced, so it's a little bottom heavy. This kind of comes across like you have it on the impedance adapter and you need to keep on turning it up to sound clear and get more clarity out of it. But if you do that, it doesn't really get any clearer or have any more clarity to it. It just kind of sounds like you have an impedance adapter and it's just pulling the treble level down. So the sound, I'll call this one thicker on the bottom and not as much up top like we just talked about. The bass, again, this is a very nice glide. It's kind of a heavy glide, not as fun as KZ Saga, which I just talked about. KZ Saga actually has a little bit more bass. That comes across more as more of a hip-hop set. It's kind of got a punchier, boomier sound to it. It's a lot more fun. This one does sound cleaner, and again, the bass boost, this one it has a bass boost, but it really tries to keep the timbre right. So again, I kind of keep on harping on the mids as opposed to the bigger bass shelf. It comes across more of a timbre set of trying to keep that sounding better and more natural than it does as a bassy genre set as you would get on KZ Saga. So I would say it does sound more like a bass boost than a bass headset, without a doubt. I think KZ Saga is more of closer to a step towards a bass headset. This one, if you hear the two side by side like I did, I think KZ Saga definitely comes across more like a bass headset. This one sounds more like a bass boosted, thicker set. And the Ms, and again, I'll say this is the tougher part of this tuning, and I kind of had the same problem with Dyna Quattro. If you are a timbre priority person, it's probably your jam, and you probably like a nice thicker mid style. The way this one comes across, it's got that thick, rich mid style because there's a lot of bass kind of working its way through into the mids. But most timbre sets sound exactly like this one, and with less bass for better timbre, right? I think that's sort of where this thickness that you get to the mids because of how much they're carrying over into the mids, that will come across as maybe not as great timbre to some people. Some people like that really clean style mids, and nice style natural, but nice not so thick, especially on the female vocals. And this one just kind of comes across as thick. So yeah, I kind of call it a timbre set, but I think some people who are really into timbre will probably notice that that is quite a bit of bass kind of bleeding into the mids, and that does come across as a little bit thicker. So do keep in mind, also, it is a timbre style over resolution and detail and dynamics and layering separation. All those technical things kind of take a back seat to keeping these mids sounding a little more natural and a little more, don't have any too much bass going out of step. Definitely don't have any treble taking it off timbre. This one is kind of pulled back at both ends as you would expect on a timbre set, but they didn't pull back the bass as much. So there is kind of a bass heaviness to it, but on the treble, it definitely feels pulled back and constrained kind of the way you would expect on a timbre style set. So maybe on the thicker side, but still very, very pleasant to listen to. And on the treble, definitely it has the lower has more energy, and then it ramps down for timbre heads and treble sensitive listeners. Again, like I said, it doesn't look as pulled back in or as safe or conservative or as relaxed on the graph, but it actually is in here. It definitely comes across that way. And it does sound like many other sets in this style, very controlled treble response that sounds a little less engaging to anyone other than timbre folks. Most of the difference here is in the quieter treble, right? A lot of sets, especially in the Harman style, have a lot of energy out here. Those tend to come across as a little bit more engaging, a little bit more over-energetic. But in here, you're sort of getting this quieter treble. So no peaks, no sibilance, no over-energy. A lot of that is different here in this style. The timbre focus is more about getting this right as opposed to a lot of extension in the treble and a lot of energetic resolve, all those things that happen on sets you may already have. That's not this style of set. So, I think it definitely has no peaks, no sibilance, and you might be used to those things on similarly priced sets, so it's kind of nice to hear that for a change. And this, again, for stage, this one isn't for stage folks. This one is kind of a classic timbre priority balance, so the stage is pulled inward. There isn't a whole lot of upper treble air. It kind of just rolls off in a nice quiet way, so it doesn't go out of step at all here. It just kind of rolls off in a natural way, and a lot of sets actually do the same exact move who do this style of tuning, so not really a surprise. So a little pulled inward, but I would say it's okay for the price at that $50 mark. It's kind of okay for the price and the stage presentation. If you can get it without the bass, if you depending on what the track is, and it's on a little wider, or maybe it has some slight height to it, but for the most part, it's going to be pulled into the center in your head, and that's pretty much how most of these sets that are tuned in the same way are come across on stage. So that is what I got on the Dawn MS. So thank you guys again for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.